Okay, it's 1 o'clock on this beautiful Friday afternoon here in Hot Springs Village. The temperature is only about 50 degrees out there. We're looking lower than that, in the 40s now. So welcome to winter. We did pass right through fall this morning, so I hope you enjoyed it. We got a lot to cover today. So I call to order the Comprehensive Master Plan Advisory Committee meeting for October 11th. I would ask that we just take a moment. At our last meeting, we had talked about Patricia McCarthy had submitted her resignation from our committee. Unfortunately, Patricia passed away about 2 weeks ago. So about a week after our last meeting, she passed away. So I just ask that we remember Patrick, her husband, as he goes through this kind of sudden loss here. And Patricia was a unique individual in that she was hired for this committee I'm just a common old person who lives in the village. And he really brought with that perspective. So just remember Patrick out there if you see him and stuff like that. So, okay. We have everybody here, and we'll start with Mr. Dixon. Director Dixon, any updates from the board?
I would like to hold anything to the latter part of the meeting. Nothing right now.
And then Steph, do you have anything?
Not really. We've been going through budgets. Okay. That's been the main topic, so in the interest of time, I'll skip.
Okay, let's go back. We'll go number 2 there. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So
motion. Second.
Okay, any discussion or additions to the agenda? All those in favor of the agenda as published, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, approve the minutes from September 13th. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? My discussion is, Tom, you do a good job. You do a very good job in the minutes, so any...
And incorporating all the feedback you got.
Yes. Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Action items, we have the list there on the agenda. We're going to talk a little bit more about the first action item there, Manny subsidization, facility condition indexing, and evaluating the Manny pricing tool. The second one, communication of the FAQs. I think they're getting pretty close. We'll talk about that on the agenda. Buddy, we're still good for November to make the presentation in the POA board. Hopefully you'll make it through next week and get the budget approved out there. And then that leads right into the formal presentation. We'll talk a little bit about that later on. I have posted, for item 5 there, posted the CMPAC member opening to replace Patricia. We've had no applications as of yet. I guess they're looking for higher pay.
Better hours.
Better hours, yeah.
We can afford to double it. Doubling zero is still zero.
For Rolland and Murray, the facility condition indexing tools, we're going to talk about that later in the agenda there. Nikki, the growth prioritization tool, number 7. Good on that one. Stephanie, the definition of pocket neighborhood.
I sent it out. We're going to have a motion later.
Okay. And the implementation table, Stephanie, we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then everybody, hopefully you had a chance to read the market barometer. So, any questions on any of the action items? We'll handle several of them here during the meeting. Okay, for the quick education moment, I love the internet. I really love the internet because you never know what's going to be passed around on the internet. And when I served on the board, one of my fellow board members sent me an email because you got to read this one. So it had to do with the Saline County Planning Board. And as most of you know, I'm your Justice of the Peace from Saline County. And how there's a conspiracy theory out there that we have went in Saline County and changed the neighborhood or changed the ordinances out there to include pocket neighborhoods, specifically in the Saline County ordinances. I just need to, folks, first of all, for Saline County planning, they have given all that over to any of this type of stuff. It has been handed over to the POA in Cooper years ago. The planning board there is the POA, and in conjunction with everybody there. So there's out there. But the funnier part was if you go back and read what was actually changed on March or whatever, it was a title. It had nothing to do with pocket neighborhoods. So I just ask you, if you see some of these things, please ask the sources, because we'll give you the right, give you the answers, But it's great. It's a conspiracy theory out there. But the challenge we have is these conspiracy theories always grow, and you can't put them back in. So that's my kind of education moment today. Nikki, you don't need to put that in the paper, but it's extra bit. But I just thought it was hilarious when someone sent me that. So out there. Second one, CMP AC 2019-2020 goals. If you look back in the minutes there, we put those in. Is there anything we need to change on those goals? You had about the board review in November, the 4 SWATs, strategic review of the 2021 budget, create the FMP question, or the FAQs, implementation tables, related information on the website, organizational structure. Anybody, any additions or changes to those goals, or are we ready to go with those?
Do we need to put them in smart format? Any value doing that?
So, as far as
Execution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Measurable, action-oriented, time boxed.
well, first of all, are these good to go as they are? Then we can put them in. I mean, folks,
Just a comment, not the goals themselves. I'm just assuming that, particularly for 2020, sometime during the year, the 2020 goals will be revised as
revised,
we
yeah.
learn more.
So,
Just FYI, the POA objectives were in the budget that was in that packet of information, 2020.
any other? Are we good to go with those as our starting point? Today, a motion.
I thought.
Okay, second.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? And we'll publish those as our goals, and then if we need to add more to them,
Okay.
we'll just add them. So that's a good starting point.
All right.
Okay, motion. We have a motion that's out there about CMP implementation tables. Stephanie?
Well, wait a minute. We have discussion, closed discussion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So,
There's not just a whole lot to report on the implementation tables. I had my first, I would say, pass and a half through them to start revising primarily responsible parties, because that's the organizational structure has changed a bit since they were first adopted. But we still have some work to do. I'm still hopeful on the October 31st date, but and we talked about it in staff meeting a couple days ago, so the staff is aware that they are coming their way for them to fine-tune what I've started.
any questions? Okay, the pilot CMP project.
So what we're going to use is the wayfinding project for next year. We do have, it's in the CMP, of course. It's a long-term project. It's not something you accomplish in a year. But what we hope to do in 2020, we have a little money set aside, is to get some public involvement, some input from the community, and then begin the process of design, graphic design, et cetera, to figure out just kind of what are they going to look like, where do they go, and again, input from the community on what they'd like to see and where they feel somewhat lost.
And we all remember, this is basically a project to let the project management team of Nikki and Rolland build a schedule based on that.
And works for work.
So we're good to go. Everybody understand what this is, answers that question. We get a pilot project there so they can move forward on that. So.
And more than one is okay, so if you have another one,
Yeah.
we can do this, right?
Sure you can.
I'm sure you can. There's two of us, I think we could have at least 2 projects.
Okay, and that leads right into subcommittee reports, project management. Nikki?
Project management. Okay, since the last meeting, what Rolland and I have been working on, and we had just gotten about 50% through the recommendations in terms of reviewing them and kind of grouping them into what we're calling portfolios, big buckets, and there's 7 portfolios that we've been working on. We have now gone through that entire list. We've made our first pass at that. That's going to be supported by the work that the subcommittees have been making, going through their own list about trying to figure out short, medium, and long-term kind of strategies so we can kind of start prioritizing that. So all that is going to feed into the input of that, and I think we're making good progress. I think when we were at our last meeting, I reported that we probably had close to 175, 200 line items. We have exceeded 350 and all, and this is at the highest 50,000 foot level view. We haven't even gotten into any of the details yet. So more to come on that one, but we're making progress.
Questions? No one else wants to jump on that hand grenades on their team, right? Didn't think so. I just tried to get your help, and no one wanted to jump on your team with you around.
Okay.
Well, you gave me 10 minutes. I
Okay.
have another 8 minutes to go, but I thought I would save the time.
Okay, thanks. Well, yeah, because it's going to be right now, because we're to the marketing update, and we have Jamie Caperton, who is going to present the marketing plan that was presented yesterday to the board of directors. So we'll hand these out. You got enough going that way? We got one.
I do, thank you.
We're going to need some more on that side.
This is not the marketing committee update, correct?
No, this is the plan that the POA staff presented to, it's fitting all in marketing.
Tom?
Whatever works. I don't have one here. Thank you. Yep.
And Buddy, do you want to say anything about this before Jamie starts?
Okay. Well, before I get started, I'd like to recognize the subcommittee that Pam has been working diligently with. I think we have Ray and Chuck
Diane's back there. Yep.
and Pam. They have done a yeoman's job of working through the details and the analysis and all of the things that have driven this plan over the last several months and given us the information that has helped us to put this plan together. So first of all, I just really want to thank all of you. You've done a great job in helping us to put this together. So thank you very, very much. As we look at page 3, I want to first of all to begin to say that this is a flexible plan. We are starting this as an opportunity to afford Hot Springs with a design, but we really want to make it apparent that this is flexible. It's a starting point. We are starting at ground zero, again, with the information that's been gathered and going forward. As you saw on the very front page, this is called Forward Together. We took that from your plan, and we want you to understand that this is a collaborative effort with staff, the POA staff, the board, and the committees. We have used the mission statement, the strategic goals, and the information that's been gathered as our basis for formulating this plan. And that has become the focus of the marketing and the measurement, and will be the measurements of our success going forward. We will be working continuously with the subcommittee, the marketing subcommittee, going forward. We already have meetings set with several of the members to work on things like our RFP, our website, and other things that are coming out of this plan, and we look forward to that continued relationship. As you move forward in this, you'll see that there's a SWOT analysis that the committee did that helped us to look at all of the issues and things from the past on our marketing efforts that have been happening with the POA up to this point. That analysis really drove many of the things that were the layout of this plan. As you will hear from Pam, there are other suggestions that they have that may be a little deeper than what we have incorporated into the plan, but these are the things that drove what we wrote into this plan as the staff. The next thing that you see in the plan is how we have defined our customers. This was a very deep dive into what will drive how we market in this community. One of the things that we had to really work very diligently on in analyzing past marketing efforts for us is exactly who that customer is going to be for the future. And one of the things that was very apparent is that there are multitudes of different markets that are apparent for HSV. We have defined that there is an alley of a market for us that's our primary alley, and that is that 55 to 60, 50 to 65 mark. That is not to say that we don't have people on either side of that. What we have found that most people in that 40 to 45 range on one side of it is where they begin to look at HSV, and many people well past 65 are continuing to purchase in this market, but that is not our primary market source. So we have to look constantly on either side of that, but our primary market is right in the middle alley of that. We also, in looking at most of our research, have found that for most people, not all, I'm the exception to the rule, it takes them about 18 to 24 months and sometimes even longer than that to make their actual move decision to come here. I made mine over a weekend in the middle of a snowstorm. But for most people, it takes them a little longer to make that decision. And so we have to be a little bit patient with some of their decision-making processes, and we have to help them with that decision-making. We also are trying to work with our research and our data collection. We found that was one of our weakest points in our processes. And so, and again, I have to give the credit to our committee because they really helped us to define that and helped us to learn where we needed to be doing a little bit better record keeping and analysis of our metrics to begin to find those places. The active lifestyle obviously has been the biggest criteria for our marketing. Our 5 strongest market sections for where people are coming from are Arkansas, Texas, Kansas, and Oklahoma. But we also have noted that that's where we've done most of our marketing in the past. And so, but what we also are finding out is that we have to realize that the things that what we need to be marketing to are people with pensions, people that have the ability to cash out their pensions and bring that with them. They have a military, police, fire, typically have an earlier retirement age and can utilize those pension benefits. We want to look at people who have high value real estate cash out abilities. They have a $50,000 to $100,000 household income purchasing power. And the biggest thing for us is we want to be able for HSV to answer their issues. And when we talk about that, when they come to us and they're looking at that, that's when we talk issue answering, they're in traffic issues. They don't want traffic anymore. They want that answered for them. They want high cost of living to be reversed. They want that to be a lower income. They want overcrowding to be answered for them. And they want their weather-related issues. Just like me, I wanted out of that snowstorm, and I wanted to be able to enjoy the seasons a little longer and be able to enjoy what you had here, which is this beautiful seasons that we're enjoying right now. The primary segmentation that you're seeing here, the empty nesters, the traditional and non-traditional families, and the younger and single couples. These have been our segmentations for quite a while, and they continue to be what we're seeing coming here. The last one that you're seeing here is a new one that we're really targeting hard and heavy right now, which is a Gen X definition. If you flip the page, you'll see a little bit better definition of that for you so that you'll understand why we're targeting this, especially in golf. You've heard all of the different generational definitions, the baby boomers and the Gen X's and that. Gen G is a golf terminology, and it specifically targets those golf populations that we go after pretty heavily because of our golf populations here. But these are those populations of the golfers that are somewhere between 46 to 65, and that's that most vital group of golfers that have that expendable income that they can bring to our population here. And so those are the ones that we're going to be going after and trying to recruit to HSV. Okay? So the next page that we have in here, and we have it in here primarily to show you, this is the 2019 golf participation in the U.S. And just to, if we want it in here more as a data point for you to show you why we're targeting some of the population areas, because of the high concentration of golfers and their target areas in the United States. Okay. I'm trying to go through this because I only got 15 minutes. So, customer buying trends. Again, I think Pam here, she really helped us with this page. Sorry. These are a lot of the current buying trends in our area of folks that are buying homes. We really just got another data point that came out just today. We actually posted it. We were actually hit with an article this morning that said we are no longer the lowest area of buying homes, which is good because we're our home values are going up in our area, but we're not listed as the lowest area of buying homes on the retiring market. So it kind of is a good news, bad news story, because we're not hitting that lowest area to retire in anymore because of our increased value of homes in our market. But so we kind of have to fight it on both sides of that story, but it just means that our market values are good. This also shows the number of homes that are being sold, and I just have this in here so that you can see what kind of buying trends that folks have in our area. Branding strategies. I really want to get to this for you really so that you can understand what we're looking at. We are taking a cross all markets in our village to make sure that everyone from the moment that they enter our village, through all of our amenities, through everything, that we have a strong branding strategy. Sorry. And I put our branding strategies and our mission statement and vision in here to really reinforce that we keep that strong through everything that we do. And that all of our volunteers, all of our committees, all of our staff, everyone, thank you very much, know that, and that we continue to market it consistently. You'll see a little bit later in our budget that we've combined all of our marketing budgets into one concise, unified budget and department in order for us to re-energize that into one brand. Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later here. In the comprehensive master plan, you have there the brand promise. And one of the things that was mentioned in that is that we had not really done a great job of defining that brand promise. We've done a good job on our mission statement and our vision statement. But the brand promise was the one piece where we had sort of missed it a little bit. And we want to get back to that and making sure that what we're promising the people that come here, they get. And one of the reasons that the CMEO position was created was to reinforce that brand promise sorry, to everyone that comes here. So that when you go to food and beverage, you go to golf, you go to any of our amenities, that you get the highest quality piece of service that you ever can get. And so that's our promise to you, that when we say that you live your dreams here, that you're going to get that. And we want to make sure that we deliver on that promise. From the moment that you enter that gate as a visitor to the time that you buy your home, to past that time, so that when you get your visitor's packet, thank you so much, Pam, your sweetheart. That to the time that your buddy's age and having lived here 23 years here, that you're still believing that you're living your dreams. Sorry. And we want everybody to have that brand promise from the moment that they've clicked on our website to 23 years later. And so we have to work on changing that atmosphere. And that's what this bow tie funnel in here. We've got to go back. Right now, we're working really good on a sales model, but we got to change that. We have to change it to where it's consistent every single day that everybody lives in the village. And that's what we're working on in our brand promise to you. So, things are changing. You've heard about the sales office is moving into a new model. We have a new sales team, sales and marketing team now, and that team is listed in here. And we are now going to change that model to a little bit different thing where we're going to be working directly with our realtors community, the realtors and the builders community, to try to develop that into as strong a relationship as we possibly can, so that we can reach the goal of building 2,500 homes in 20 years. Big goal. Okay. Our leads generation, the next page over, is going to be done in such a way. I had a question earlier. Are we going to only concentrate on golf? Nope. We are splitting that all the way across every amenity we possibly have. We're going to talk about pickleball. We're going to be in, you saw in here a little bit of a calendar of the trade shows that we're going to, but we're not just going to be talking about golf anymore. We're going to be talking about pickleball. We're going to be talking about trails. We're going to be talking about tennis. We're going to be talking about bicycling. We're going to be really pushing up all of the amenities that we have, all the way down to the couple that we brought right behind us. He's a Laker and she's a knitter. And she said, I'm not going if you don't find me a knitting club. And so before we could get her here, I had to hook her up with some ladies that would surround her with knitting. And we did that. And so we have to make sure that everybody that's coming has people who can surround them just that way. And it's very important that we have that commitment to everybody that comes. And we have to raise up all of our amenities to that level. So our team is making that commitment that every lead that comes in will have that dedication to it. As much as golf has it, every one of them will have that. As you see at the bottom down here, we've changed up our audience profiling with our lead sources. And this was a challenge that was given to us by the committee, and we really appreciate that. In the past, we've really just taken the leads and sent letters and called and done that, and it really wasn't enough. And so we went back to the sources where we were getting our leads and said, we need more information. We need to find out what we're getting from that, what else do they look, and who are we being benchmarked against? Who's our competition? And so you see down below some of the new information that we're getting from our lead sources. And again, I really have to thank the committee for that challenge. The next pages that you're seeing here are the strategic goals and objectives that came from the drive and the challenge from the committee and from our staff and the board. These were really a stretch and a push for us. Some of these, again, are maybe a little bit different than some of the things that you're going to see from the committee. And one of those that you'll see here is the one of 2,500 new rooftops. And that's a 2% annual change. That's about 125 rooftops a year. I think one of the things that Pam and that group had recommended was a 5% growth in that. We felt that as staff that might be too big a stretch for this group at the beginning for this first 5 years. Might be able to do that a little bit different as we grew, but in our first 5 years we felt like we needed to stay at that 2% mark in these beginning years as we instituted this program. Sorry about that. So the other thing that I really emphasize with these strategic goals and objectives is that these are ground zero. This is where we're starting from. The other piece of this is that every month, every quarter, semi-annually, and annually, we will be sitting down and analyzing this and seeing how we are progressing towards these. If at any point we feel like we are not reaching them, or one of the strategies that we are using to get to that point is not working, we will stop and redirect. Too much in the past has been, we're going to wait the whole year, and at the end of the year, we're going to, then look at it. That is not how we are going to do this. It is too hard to make a directional change at that point. So much of what we're doing here, we can easily make a directional change in the middle of it, and we want to do that so that we can actually reach these goals and strategies. And we really, again, these are some of the things that this committee has been awesome in helping us do, and they've been part of that team that is really helping us get down into those things to help us do it, and I really thank them for that again. So I don't want to get too much into the tactics and things there. One of the things I do want to talk to you about is the funding and where we came on this. Because everybody asks how much should we be spending on our marketing. And this is a really hard number to get to because we are not your typical organization. If we were a business selling widgets, or if we were a shop or a coffee shop or anything like that, we would be able to go out to the Small Business Association and know how to do that. If we were a city, we probably wouldn't have much of a marketing budget at all, but unfortunately we're none of those things. And we are a conglomeration of a multitude of different things, and so what we tried to do here was show you how we went about deriving our budget. We took the Small Business Association guidelines, which are typically 6 to 12% of a business budget is what ought to be spent. And then we went in and took out all of the city services budget line items out of our budget and tried to get down to what was left. And then we applied both the 6 and the 12% and gave you the numbers at the bottom as to what it would be if that's what we were applying to that. And then what you look at the very back of the page over here is what we had projected for our budget. And if you look at it, it's not much off of that. And that's what we have to work with. Okay? The dollars that were put into this budget is a starting point of, and we were visiting about this just a minute ago, we took all of the dollars that had been in all of the different budgets, because it wasn't a marketing department before. We were a conglomeration of dollars, $5,000 here, $10,000 there, monies that were allocated in all of the different budgets. Now we brought all of those together into a marketing department so that we could have one directive force going forward on marketing this year. Again, very different than it's been done in a long time. And that's what these numbers are. It wasn't that we went out and made up a number. We just took everything that had been spent before and put it all in one place, and that's what this is. Okay? That makes sense? Didn't increase it, didn't decrease it. We just put it all in one location, and that's what this is.
So there should be some people happy out there in the village now they know how much we're spending on marketing.
Okay?
At least they have a figure versus always asking.
That's it.
Always asking. So here's what the total run is.
We, over here on the left-hand side on page 24, we came in and made a decision about where we thought we should divide those up among branding, website, social media, advertising, content, metrics, and events. Is that going to have to stay there? No. This is where we felt like we needed to divide it up to make sure that we had money allocated to all of those areas. But as we move forward, again, as I said, every month as we look at all of these items and we evaluate where we're going and what we're doing, again, this is where we're just very much going to rely on that advice from the committees to decide, are we doing well in those areas? Do we need to move something? Do we need to reallocate because website really needs a boost right now because we need something there? We can reallocate those monies. Those line items are not set in stone. We can really move that around, but we really need that advice to make sure that we know we're going in the right direction and meeting those goals and strategies. So that's why it's so critical that we have that ongoing relationship and kind of evaluate and do that. Questions?
Any overall big questions? I know this is a lot for us to get poured into us as our overall committee. Pam's been working in this, and Chuck, and Diane, and Ray, and all the other folks have been working down in the trenches on this type of stuff here. But anything just overall?
Yes, I have
I know,
one little
I know.
thing. Wait, no, I just have one thing. Your Generation G, Gen G, in the golfers thing, that may be valid, but if you Google Gen G, the first 3 pages on Google are for a lipstick product.
Right. Yeah.
And the next item
No, wait,
is
Korean lipstick. Korean lipstick.
product. So I would caution you in using a term that is too easily misunderstood. And since so many people, when they don't understand something or they want to learn more, the first place they go is the internet.
Absolutely. And that's why we want to
Yeah.
have
And when
it
you
in
said
there.
that yesterday
That's exactly
to the
what we
board,
did.
I was watching on the feed there, and I kind of looked, and I said, what? And I thought, Genji, I was going, you're doing some karate moves or something.
Well, and that's exactly what Mr. Buddy over here said, and that was why we put the definition into the marketing plan after the fact, to make sure that we had the good definition of it for you.
Okay, so where this sits now, we've gotten our first look at from the overall committee. Like I said, the subcommittee's been working with them and appreciate it, and I know Pam's going to talk about something here in a second, but just for our process, so everybody understands, is we are an advisory committee. So now the marketing plan is there. It's coming back to us for our best advice to go out and say it. They briefed the board, all this other stuff. They looked at it, they shake their heads. But now we're being asked as the CMP Advisory Committee, and I will go and hold up the Bible. No, just the CMP, if you look in the CMP, as we look at this, there's a couple pages that have to deal with marketing. And we probably need to go, as we go back and do any advice we want to provide, here's the document that we can go back and look at too, to say, is it answering these questions? Is it, those type of things? Because there's a lot of things that we've said we need to answer. Is this plan answering? There's one way to look at it. I know there's stuff that's outside the CMP, even that hasn't been documented, that the subcommittee brought up, because they're had the expertise and they know what's going on, even more type of stuff there. So does everybody kind of understand our process out there, that now it's being asked for provide advice? As we provide advice, we're going to rely heavily on our subcommittee. The Chucks, the Dianes, the Rays, the Pam, Dan out there on TV land, and Nancy, who can't be here. Who'd I miss?
Dan with no power in California.
Oh, they have no power in California. I missed one person there. Chuck
Miller.
Chuck Miller up there. That they'll go back and look at. And I will turn it over to Pam now, because she just wants to give some comments too about this out there. So.
Good. I'm just going to basically give an update, the marketing subcommittee update. And one of the things that we've been chartered to do is to provide recommendations and suggestions. And so we've been working on that. We've actually only had 3 meetings since July. That's when we started. We've had 3 meetings. We've had 3 workshops. And I was trying to calculate. We've put in more than 200 hours since July creating these recommendations. And a lot of them you saw in Jamie's plan. Jamie has been involved with us in our meetings, and it's I'm used to liaisons kind of sitting there quietly. Jamie has always just jumped right in and been involved, so that's been such a good positive thing, and kept us all kind of going along the same track. But to that goal of providing the recommendations that we're supposed to do, I'm going to go ahead and hand these out to all of you.
And this is the starting point, and we have a month.
Oh,
So
okay,
the
thank
goal
you.
would be for the committee, Pam has provided some initial recommendations to go back out, run this plan to make sure that maybe a recommendation needs to change on there or something else, but this is actually a starting point too, so we got a month
Did I give you the?
to work on this.
I had my little starred version and I probably gave it.
Do you have any extras?
You gave me the one you wanted to
Do you have the
keep.
one with stars in it?
I see stars all the time.
Okay, who's
Buddy's got it.
who's got the stars? Come on, you guys, who's got the stars?
They haven't gone anywhere but that direction.
Yeah.
I don't have one.
We don't have one,
Yeah,
so they can't
maybe
blame us.
operator error. Maybe I don't know. Not likely, okay, we're good. Keep
Okay.
going.
Never mind.
Sorry, see, my printer ran out of ink today after I got through 3 copies of this, and I was like, oh, no. All right, so I'm just going to kind of highlight some of the things in here because you'll see that as you read it, you'll see that a lot of these recommendations, as we said, as Jamie said, and then I'm saying again, a lot of these recommendations are incorporated in the business plan. And I think as a marketing subcommittee that's been working really hard on this, it feels good to know that that some of what we've done so far has actually borne fruit and is actually in the business plan. So I think that's a good thing, or in the marketing plan. There are a couple things that I'd like to highlight with you guys and go through. If you go to page 3, the organizational marketing strategy, the committee differed a little bit with the marketing plan. We feel very strongly that it's important that the marketing organization within the POA be looked at a little bit differently. We've noticed that there's a significant lack of true marketing expertise on the POA, and so we recommended a different structure that would provide more expertise, provide more control, and so that's under organizational marketing strategy.
Okay, so for the overall committee, you can kind of mark that one, and so we can ponder on that too. So kind of, as we sit here, look
Right.
at that.
And really the reason why we looked at that, even though it might technically be outside what we're supposed to be chartered with, it's really paramount to the success of a marketing program. We can make all the recommendations in the world about the program itself, but if you don't have the right people in place to implement that, it's meaningless. So that's why we actually went in there. Some of the external marketing strategies that we felt were very important, we acknowledged the discovery packages because we think that's a very strong thing. But we also talked about group sales and the importance of developing or enhancing the group sales program within the marketing group because it offers the opportunity to increase revenue in the village by encouraging more use of the amenities that we have here. So group sales was one of the things that we talked about. And as you go through this down below, things like group sales, all of these, you'll see a little note after each one that says maps, the goals 1, 2, or whatever. The goals are on page 2 and they're numbered. So you can see for each one of these recommendations exactly which one of the goals they're addressing.
So this is one of the things that, like the first one, the numbers on those goals, there's a difference there between what you guys have recommended versus what you put in the plan right now. Okay.
That's what,
We also went into a bit more detail on advertising because our advertising in the work that the subcommittee has done, we found that the advertising has been weak, it's been inconsistent, it's been ineffective as far as we could tell, but since there were very few metrics available, it was hard to tell what was even working and what wasn't. And as I said, the messaging was inconsistent. So we have a number of recommendations around the advertising and also ways to get more bang for our buck with our advertising, because there are many, many tools and strategies you can use. We talked about public relations. Public relations is amazing, and the village doesn't use it in our estimation nearly enough. Public relations is basically free. Free is a good number. On the budget, free is a good number. And it can be very powerful. So we've given some recommendations as far as how to use public relations better and to a greater extent. We talked about website communications and navigation. With the Gen Xers and the baby boomers that we are targeting, according to the marketing plan and according to the work that we've done, they generally, when they're looking for information, the first place they go is to the internet. Our website does not serve the village well. I'm not sugarcoating it. We need to work much, much harder on the website. So that was one of our recommendations, and we talked about that a little bit. We talked about also partnering with the residents more for marketing the village. And this came out of observations that we've made. It came out of a survey that the POA has actually been doing of new residents coming in here and asking them, where did you hear about the village? The percentage of people that heard about the village through friends and family is huge. And I can't remember with the last one what it was. Was it like 83%?
Yeah, 67% of village people moving into the village hear from friends and family.
Which is pretty amazing. And that's something that we really haven't leveraged as well as we could. Part of the challenge with that is that the villagers can be our best marketers. They can also be our worst. So it really behooves all of us as villagers, as staff, as committee people, to work as hard as we can on remembering that the things that we do and the things that we say have a huge impact on bringing people into the village and making all those marketing efforts successful. Let's see, what else did we talk about this different? We also talked about enhancing the village's image, and that really involves more contact and more conscious effort to reach out to the surrounding communities, to Benton, to Hot Springs, and I could name all the towns around, but there's so many things that we could do out there to help build our reputation. And it's noted, a lot of the people that move to the village come from Arkansas. Let's enhance our image out there so that we get more of those people. We could create things like a speakers bureau to go out and speak at events outside the village. We could create a charitable contributions program where we give away to charities outside the village. Things that, some of the amenities like a golf package or tea times, things that are underused right now. We're not even using them, but we could be making them work for us. We talked a little bit about market research. Jamie hit on that. Learning more about who's buying out there, about how effective our marketing is. And it's really important that we monitor the effectiveness of our media advertising as well as our digital advertising. And there are tools to do that. There are ways to do that. We haven't in the past been that great about making use of those tools. We have to start doing that. It's really important that we know how we're doing and where we're not doing well, how we shift to make all of our marketing work better for us. We talked briefly about what we called a sense of arrival, and that is when people first enter the village, how do we make them feel welcome? How do we make them feel like they have just entered or are entering into a wonderful place? So we had some recommendations to make on that. We talked about internal marketing strategies, and that's basically resident satisfaction. So we talked there about communications and suggested ways to more effectively communicate with the residents. We talked about partnership and providing more opportunities for the residents to make a difference here in the village, and just little things that could be done so that they feel like they're making a difference, so that we all feel like we're not just here, we're here making a difference. So we talked about that. We talked about the amenities and improving the quality and the access to the amenities. We felt that was very important, not only for internal, but for external as well. And so I provided you with some graphs that talk about the pricing of the amenities and the relative usage. So that's in there. We did that because the amenities of the village have undergone a dramatic decrease in usage over the years, and yet prices have increased. So we felt that that was very important to the overall marketing effort and to internal and external marketing. Let's see what else. We talked about funding strategies just a little bit, and talked about how savings will be generated, and instead of talking about spending first, we talked about how, first of all, to generate some savings. So we talked about redirecting tourism efforts to address the program's priorities. So going to trade shows, when we're doing things like that, how do we maximize and save money instead of spending money incorrectly? Researching markets and allocating the effort to the revised target markets. Curtailing ineffective advertising. We talked about closing the sales office, but it's already been done. Check that one off. And then also redirecting some of the advertising dollars that were used for the sales office, redirecting those to things like group sales and some other areas. And then we provided a proposed marketing budget, just very top level. And it kind of goes along with what Jamie was talking about, the 6 to 12% of gross revenue. This is even lower than that. Chuck Albrecht helped us with this. Thank you very much. Dan worked on this. So, in summary, this is the very first high-level series of recommendations that came out of a lot of work learning about what the village has done in the past with marketing and advertising, how they measured the effectiveness, how they did their various markets, and as we went through, we did a SWOT. The SWOT is in the marketing plan, and I think these are very solid recommendations, and I think the team hopefully believes so too, because they all worked on them really hard. And I hope that they will be at least considered and looked at, where they don't necessarily go along with the marketing plan, but still be considered as possibilities for the future,
I think
or even now.
a lot of these, Pam, are actually some next level detail too out there. So that's, I mean, our goal, I would ask, and here's my challenge to the marketing subcommittee over the next month, before you come back to us, is take these and say, where do they think, because this is a level, and where do these fit in? Because, and I think someone, probably Jamie, you guys are already considering out there, but when you're marketing at this level, or you're writing a plan at this level, how do we make sure all this stuff is kind of, and there are some places where there's a divergence, and we, if there's something that the subcommittee thinks is, this is something, we probably need to provide advice on that. So that's kind of our challenge. Does everybody around the table on the committee understand our challenge now? So as you have the document, and Buddy, this is the document that's the board has looked at and kind of shook their head. But I think one of the key things that was said yesterday during the presentation by Jamie or Leslie was it's a living document, and there's some things out there that maybe can be worked in and out there type of stuff, because especially us non-marketing folks, we might look at it totally different. How Tom will look at it, because Tom's a numbers guy. He'll look at it one way. Clint's a lawyer. He's going to look at it a whole other way. So numbers and law out there. But that's what we'd appreciate from you, to go back and say, all right, how does all this fit in? And especially, this is, I just say from perspective here, all the hard work that's actually went into a marketing plan over the last short period of time out there. So thank you. Jamie, Pam, Chuck, Ray, Diane, Dan, the other Chuck, and Nancy, because Nancy's going to be here.
Well, and I want to add to that too, that if I can, because it's still my time.
Okay.
The people that you acknowledged absolutely have worked really, really hard, but some of this information and a lot of this goes back to some of the marketing plans and some of the information that other people in the village have provided. And their input was instrumental in helping create these recommendations.
And I acknowledge John. I see John sitting out there. John Duncan sitting out there. Thank you.
John's was one of them.
Yep.
John's name is right, right there. So thank you.
So we've actually come together, something we've been trying to do on marketing for how many years? Stephanie, you've been here, what, 400 years?
Stop counting. Stop counting.
But I can say back to, I've been here nearly 10 years, we have never had a marketing plan that has been looked at and even produced like this. We did a little bit when we had an actual marketing department. You can go back and say, we did have a little marketing department. It was one person and 2 part-time folks, but never to this level type of stuff here. So I think our challenge to us is be ready to think what we need to provide as advice there.
Still have more to do.
And we
Yep,
have
these
an
are
action
only, and
item.
it says very clearly, these are only initial strategies, phase 1. So there's a lot more to do. We'll start working on branding and messaging. And
That's why I
that
said
will
you
be
go
our
back and
challenge.
read in what's in the CMP. I mean, there's 3 pages of marketing tasks or recommendations, and see, they've hit a bunch of them. Clint.
So Keith, what I'm hearing you say is that this needs to go to our subcommittee.
Let them
then
go back,
come
work on it.
to, because there's a lot here for us to take
Yeah.
in. We need some time. So if it goes back to the subcommittee,
Yeah.
then come back to us, and then we can talk about.
And that's the goal, is at the November meeting, come back, say, all right, these are the type of stuff, get the inputs from the subcommittee. I mean, you've been participating in the subcommittee, say, yeah, these are from our perspective as the advisory committee. These are the ones, we might want to consider. And again, it's matching up that detail too, because that's, what some of these are second level detail, but they're important second level detail. They're good examples and stuff like that.
But I still think we have an action item as a whole. We have received 2 documents that we need to read, and that's our homework between
Yeah.
now and then, so that we can have an intelligent conversation at our next meeting.
Yeah. So,
And I apologize for this format, but I had to take slides at the last minute
That's fine.
and recreate
That's
them in
fine.
outline form.
so.
So that's what I was doing
Yeah.
this morning.
Go ahead, buddy. I know you're holding a piece of paper. You want to say something?
Well, this is the basic plan, okay? And I think what we're asking is that the subcommittee take this plan, go through it, and then look at where their recommendations fit into this, bring that to you and your committee, and then you will bring it to where it'll be
Yeah.
presented, and then it'll be
Yeah.
presented to the board by Leslie. So, but this is the basic plan that stuff has to be put in with. Okay?
Everybody got that? Thanks, buddy.
And the budget has already been worked on.
The budget's, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
but there are some things here that are non-budgetary, it's that free stuff, when Pam started talking about how that free stuff you get, it's
Right.
That's how
like,
you sit up straight.
it was, you know,
One thing that I really want to make apparent is that, you know, this is the plan. Many of the things that are there are tactics and strategies, and many of those are already being done. You know, I mean, give you a perfect example of that, the idea of free stuff being done. We have Cure Magazine is coming in and doing a great story on one of our families and doing those things. Those types of things are already being done. We're working on those. We're moving forward on those types of things. We are working on implementing many of the things that you have in there are moving forward and being done. We're not getting, in this plan, are not getting down into those tiny little details of those types of things. And so what, you know, I would say is that several of those items we're not putting into this overall marketing plan just because we didn't get down into that kind of detail. Are we going to do them? Absolutely. Because, you know, we have an entire plan or entire policy or product where we work with nonprofits in the community and we give money away to them as part of our social involvement in the community. Is that in here? No. Because those are made on a yearly basis. The board has a budget of who they're going to be involved with, but we don't make that decision at this level, at the plan level. So some of those details are not going to be at this plan level. But I can let you know, I can take those and let you know who those are.
yeah, I think that would be kind of at
So-
next in November. All right,
Yeah,
these,
and
yeah,
I
we're
can
doing.
answer those
Okay,
questions
that'd
to
be good.
Right.
these details to let you know who those are.
I think that where it can bubble up to this level, though, is we have to have metrics in place. And so if you have things that you're doing, it'd be nice to show how that those are mapped and bubbled up to the top so that we could say, are they effective and is this a good use of our time, money, talents?
And we've been looking at each of those and determining whether they're effective or not, you know, but they don't always make it into
Well,
this level.
and some of them are very hard to measure because they're intangible. How do you measure goodwill?
Right. And that's what we've said is we put in a certain amount of that for our goodwill in the community, but, you know, it's just that.
And I will throw one last thing in before we get off marketing. Anybody have any other comments they want about marketing? Because I want to kind of close this out with. Now remember, our cycle is back in next March, next April. We will be providing our initial advice for the staff to work on their 2021 budget. So don't forget that in the back of our mind is, you know, what the marketing is for 2020. We have on tap to say, so there may be something that they don't have enough money this year, but we want to say something about it next March or next April. Say, this is probably something that is important. You see what I'm saying? Hey, I'm giving you that look, but it's, hey, here's what they were able to do this year so that when we provide advice out there, it ties back to something that came out of our advice out there. Okay. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
James.
Appreciate you having. Good job.
We'll do a couple quick updates here, then I know I will get kicked under the table here because it's coming up the parade, so. Okay, Rolland, anything on, you want a quick update on growth and community development?
Very briefly, we've had our initial meeting. We've given a group of tasks that seem to fall under our purview, and we spent most of that meeting kind of dividing those into related tasks because there's quite a variety of different items. And some we found were really outside our purview, and that CCI controls them. They're more associated with governing documents. A few we thought would better be placed with marketing. A couple of public utilities. But basically, we came up with, and then we prioritized short and long-term items. And we started working on three really, what we think would be valuable initiatives. The first of these is the development of an age-in-place strategy. A form will say we want to encourage housing that will allow people to come here young, play golf, have a big house, and on through Mount Carmel and age in place and stay here with their friends. The second one was, a lot is related to management of lots, and I hate to use the word tool, but we need to come up with some kind of clearinghouse and some kind of method that will review lots that we have, that POA has, and that potentially have, rate them for their buildability, or whether, and make decisions as to what might be suspended.
Hold on before you say.
We have that.
Yeah, Renee, do you have something like that already?
Well, I was going to say, we definitely have most of that analysis done.
Good.
So we just need to work together on what you're talking about. And you're right, Renee is our go-to gal on lot acquisitions and so forth. But much of that was done throughout the comprehensive master plan. Those are kind of
But they tied to
attachments to it.
I know they're there, it wasn't entirely obvious to all of us. That
Yeah, we can work with it.
And so it's very important, I think. And then the last thing we came up with, this may sound small, but fire-wise. At one time, we had an excellent fire-wise policy here, and all the houses were rated, and everything was rated, and it was promoted. And we need to find out where that is right now, because it's one of the things that's recommended in here. Outside of that, we've divided this into various categories and lists that match all these categories of long and short term. That's gone back out to the group, and we're reviewing those right now. And at the next meeting, we'll try to polish the programs.
Do you think you need a meeting in November then?
That'd be worth meeting, yeah.
Okay,
I think it'd
so-
be wise to have a meeting.
Okay, so we'll set that up for November and have a subcommittee meeting to work on that. So Jody and Clint, because you're on that one. Okay. Thanks. Any questions of Rolland on that? Kind of a quick one for the governance, economic development. We did a lot of the same thing. I'm not as far along as Rolland there. He's this project management type of guy, but we went through each of the tasks too and identified them. There's several tasks that fall into that governance and economic development pot that are on hold due to legal issues. So there's several of those, and there's several that are basically had to do with declarations, that they need to be changed. So there's a lot of those that just go on hold too. So that we'll work on that. Okay, communications, FAQ update. Nikki, Pam, who wants to do kind of the FAQ?
I will be happy to. FAQ, frequently asked questions. One of the things that we found was that during the process of going through the charrettes and everything, one of the documents that existed at that time was an FAQ based on the input at that time. We're using that as a starting point and updating things because that was a couple, 3 years ago, and now we are approved CMP, so some of those need to be tweaked. And in addition to that, we've been listening to what are some of the things that are flying away, what seem to be hot buttons in terms of topics. And we have split the list in half, and Pam and I went through it and we tried to update those, and we have completed the entire list and added, another 15% in terms of new questions based on that. The intent is that these will, after, the process is we've taken our first stab at it, they need to be reviewed. One of the things that we're trying to do to make sure that we are being 100% truthful in all that we can is getting a source for each one of those. So when we are responding to a particular FAQ, we are referring right back to a document, a website, etc., so that if you have any further interest or questions about that, you have the ability to go and check out the source from that point of view. It's not somebody's opinion, it's just not somebody's thought, it wasn't, a conspiracy theory, here's the facts, and you go straight to that source. And it's just taking a little time to go through all that process of finding the source documentation for everything. So we have completed the first drafting of it. We have sources for 50-60% of them. We're still looking for some of that. We still have to go through a second review, make sure we have it blessed, and then once we have that, then we'll make the recommendation that these will be posted on the Hot Springs Village website, so we have that first level of communications for that. So making good progress.
Stephanie, question for you. I mean, once we get all this done, who's the approval authority?
So what I'd like to see happen is once they submit that sort of finished FAQ document to the committee to review, to actually have a motion
Okay.
that you adopt it and submit it to staff for inclusion in the website. I think that would be the.
Buddy, is this something you guys are going to want to see before it goes on the website or not? Or you just rely on staff?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, I just want to make sure.
Well, Stephanie just, what she said was fine.
Okay.
So I was thinking that staff or specific people who have expertise in the various areas would want to review it.
Yeah, that's where I think that.
And then you're thinking this committee should also review it?
Well, I think before we send it to Stephanie, we need to get a
Right.
review on this committee.
I think based on the work that you guys have done, go ahead and get it into the hands of all this group, so we
Okay.
can review it as well, and then yes, submit it to staff. Well, I mean, I've already reviewed it, I've looked at it with you guys too, so
Right.
kind of along the way, but
Stephanie, somewhere in there it might want to go to the governance committee too.
maybe, yes,
Maybe.
if there are some things that touch
Right.
on anything.
Yeah.
Most of it's not so much, I mean, it's really not governance issues,
Yeah.
it's just, but yes, I mean, we'll make sure that we've
If
been
there's
there.
anything in there that's a governance issue off the
There's
top.
there's the one question about the declarations not being passed.
Yeah, what did that do to
What did
the,
that do? That's the one we're still.
but I don't know
trying to
that's
work
it, that's
on.
it, necessarily. Yeah, but anyway, yes.
Okay,
So I'll
item,
take that as an action item, that I will email that to all of y'all so you can take a look at if you have any questions, comments, whatever. We'll just set up a process so that we can capture version controls, and then I'll maintain edit controls. So if you have some questions, then just send me those, and I'll explain that via email so that we can get that done.
okay, item F, the November POA board presentation. Basically, be a recap of all the things we've done since we've been come together. In April, we'll talk about the marketing subcommittee. We'll talk about definitions that we've come up with, the FAQs. If there's something you feel that's burning that needs to be in that presentation, please let me know within the next week or so we can start building it and go from there. But again, it's just a review. We will use I use as examples the motions we passed last time to kind of be supportive. How we looked at the Saga neighborhood, we looked at Balboa Club. They were consistent with our CMP and how we're trying to look at stuff and try to explain that to the board.
Do we have a definite date for our November meeting with the POA board?
It's
third Wednesday.
Third Wednesday.
Third Wednesday.
Yeah. So our next meeting's the 9th, I believe. I think that's correct. Of November. And then the Wednesday after that, because we're the second Friday, so the third Wednesday, I think is how it goes there. And Buddy, we got, 2 hours to make the presentation?
Yeah. Oh, with you, probably 3.
Okay, we had the motion to follow up on the definition of pocket neighborhood, and it got sent out. Was there any questions? Stephanie, you got it called up there.
I can read it if you want. I want to preface it by saying, the question was asked, what is a pocket neighborhood? And it was really just in an effort to lend some clarity to what that really means. But with the understanding that's not what's actually happening in Hot Springs Village today. So I think it was just to clarify what's being stated in the CMP. So this is the definition that I submitted to you guys for your approval. So pocket neighborhoods are clustered groups of neighboring houses or apartments gathered around a shared open space, a garden courtyard, a pedestrian street, a series of joint backyards, etc., all of which have a clear sense of territory and shared stewardship. They can be in urban, suburban, or rural areas. These are settings where nearby neighbors can easily know one another, where empty nesters and single householders can find friendship or a helping hand nearby. Not necessarily my words; those are words that came out. Yeah. But I think that's a pretty good definition of what it represents. So.
Question. Rolland, you're looking.
Is there any reason that can't exist here in Hot Springs Village?
Well, no, and I mean, in different ways it does, in
Yeah.
many ways. I mean, townhouse areas have lots of those commonalities.
There are neighborhood developments.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. The only thing that we have restrictions on, and Jody's better equipped to speak to this than I, but the existing plats
Yeah.
are restrictive in replatting. So to create
Yeah.
any density, if you will, from that, that's where we run into a challenge because the plats are already set, so, and changing a plat is doable, but it's difficult.
We went through
Presents
that.
its own.
We'll
You have
put
anything to
that-
add?
Extremely, no.
Yeah,
extremely
that's something we'll add to our, we've had that discussion.
Yeah.
Type of stuff.
It's one of the things, though, that, Tom Heau and I had a good discussion earlier in the week about this, and regardless of what path we take going forward, I think it behooves us to have a clear process and understanding of what that really does mean. Like, we say it's difficult, how difficult? What does that really look like? You know, and to really put down some sort of a process and procedure that says, in order to do that, to replat or, you know, change 5 lots into 15 or something like that, to have a smaller footprint property, what does it take? And, you know, we don't necessarily have that written. We more or less all know, but it's not something that we've adopted as a process. Yeah.
Does the chair want to entertain do we need a motion to include this into the CMP, or do we just have this as additional information?
I think this is additional information right now. Just maybe that type of stuff that we know. There's a definition out there. I think the key one is Madeiras Gardens, I guess, would technically be classified as a pocket neighborhood right now.
Not in any of your.
I was going to say, I mean, that,
Yeah.
as I said, it's,
And we're built, yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
you know, part of the
But that's
the
what we're
reason-
actively building. We actually have a new building going on out
Right.
there.
I think part of the reason to define pocket neighborhood was to alleviate the fear around the pocket neighborhood. This term sounds new and trendy, and so people are fearful that that's
Yes.
a change to the overall feel and character of Hot Springs Village. It's not. You know, I mean, it can mean many different things. It can be, it can look very different depending on what and how you do it. But you know, the commonality is that it's the shared stewardship and the closeness of people and interaction with neighbors and that sort of thing. So, yeah. Tom, did I miss anything in our conversation about?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Well stated.
Feel free to jump in. You know. Okay.
Okay, it is 2:15. We'll take about a 5 to 7 minute break, so I don't get yelled at. Okay? Empty tasks, these are the ones that we're thinking, we were throwing out there to see if we wanted to do it. Amenity subsidy analysis and policy development. Any thoughts on that one? We didn't really delve deep into that one. I know with the I guess, Buddy, this would be one I have to kind of throw back on you to say amenity subsidy analysis and policy development. You know, the ad hoc operating budget committee is sunset, right?
Yeah.
Is there going to be something else?
About,
Finance committee or whatever?
well,
I don't know.
I think they'll eventually, what I understand, that they will have a finance committee at some point, but nothing's been done about it yet, because this one's just over with.
Yeah. But you see, if I look at this and it says amenity subsidy analysis, wouldn't that be something the finance committee would look at? I mean, Buddy, Nancy, I look, you just have to be on.
My personal opinion is yes, the finance committee should handle it more than this committee.
Yeah.
That's,
So I say we just put this one on hold
Yeah.
until, because, I mean, this was one that was passed to us to determine if this is something we're going to tackle, but I don't want to start.
Well, this was greatly discussed during the budget process.
Okay. That one's good. Mark that one on hold there, Tom.
Well, wait a minute, I think there's two pieces. One is the analysis and one is policy development. Are you speaking to both of those? Just the analysis, just the policy, or both?
I think both of them would go, most likely.
financial policies would also be part of the purview of the
Right.
finance committee.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so that one we're not. Nikki, you want to talk about decision-making, support tools, review, updates, growth prioritization tool?
Yes, that was a mouthful. Thank you. As you are aware, in the back of the, starting on about page 289, it talks about development tools, and then specifically prioritization tools on page 300. It talks about a growth prioritization tool and an amenities prioritization tool, easy enough to say. And then it has an example of it that would be a template that you could use. One of the things that was asked if we would potentially consider is, would we want to take a closer look at these and make recommendations on these specific tools as they relate to how the staff and the POA, board of directors, et cetera, utilize these tools in making decisions. They would be decision support tools. Obviously, if you're depending on a tool to help you make a decision, the quality of the decision is in direct proportion to the quality of the tool that you use. So therefore, as an advisory committee, would it be within our purview, would we want to take on a review of these specific tools and potentially others that would help the organization as a whole improve their ability to do better decision making because we have increased or ideally improved the quality of those tools? That's the question before us and open for discussion. What do y'all think?
Have anybody tried to run, have you run these tools?
I have.
Yeah, my opinion is, it's right in our wheelhouse.
Okay,
I mean, it's in the CMP, and
yeah.
that seems to be.
On page 301.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's there.
so everybody's willing to take this as an action item, then we'll figure out who's going to do what to who as far as the committee. And where would, anybody, a recommendation on, we want to put it in one of our standing subcommittees right now?
Can I make a comment? Please.
Yes, this is open for discussion.
Chairperson. I think it's, that's one thing is to look at the quality of the tool itself, but also the process by which we use it. So unless it's very, very black and white and the answers are either yes or no and not weighted, I talked about this as well. So, my opinion about the financial, the impact of it or the value to the community might be different than Clint's, right? So whatever it is that we're talking about, Balboa Golf Course would be an example. Unless it's a very clear black and white yes or no answer, you're going to have subjectivity.
Right.
Period. So what is the process by which we do it? Do we get a sampling of people from many different, places within the community, or resident, non-resident, demographics about how do you actually use it so that you're getting a valid response that you can then use to make the decision from? I don't think we've defined that either. So I think that would help us as a staff to sort of determine, okay, maybe the staff fills out the tool and has our, we have our value, 100 or 110 or whatever. The committee does, the membership does, different points of view are going to have a different.
And one of the things that I think, one of the things that I've already taken a look at the growth prioritization tool, and I have some thoughts on how this can be improved. But one of the things is that it doesn't have a legend. To your point, if, for example, the subjectivity comes in when you say, well, is this a small, medium, or high impact? Well, we haven't quantified small, we haven't quantified medium, we haven't quantified large, and that's where the subjectivity comes in. Putting it in and then having to wait, that's just math. But that level of subjectivity can give the person who's doing it the ability to say, well, I need a higher score, so I'll make that a such and such instead of a so-and-so because that will get me the number I need. And that's where we need a legend that helps us quantitatively say small is defined as, and then it's not up to you or me. We do the math. We say, well, it's 7. 7 is supposed to be according to this legend, however we qualify it. So I think that from that point of view, yes, removing as much subjectivity through having defined quantitative measurements would also be something that would be beneficial. Others?
Who, besides you, Stephanie, who on the staff is maybe knowledgeable of this? That would be would this maybe something for Stacy?
Yeah, I mean, we
What I'm trying to do is hook up maybe Nikki and Tom with someone on the staff that could sit and look at this.
I mean, Stacy is a good logical choice because she obviously has a lot to do with amenities. Gary Myers and Tom Heffer both have used the tool for projects. All three of those department heads have used the tool. I've used the tool. But in many cases, we've sat down as a staff and done it together and not independently, like Stephanie, fill yours out, Keith, fill yours out, whatever. But like, okay, everybody, what do you think? How do we rate this particular line? And
you're much more subject to, you want consensus, not compromise, and there's much more likelihood of getting into compromise when you bring in other people. So,
but see, what I'm getting at is they've used the tool. They know what is good and bad on it. And that's what I think Tom is kind of, would I say that, yeah, this is the thing, but how can we improve the tool?
I mean, Tom would be a logical choice for somebody to dive in and tackle this thing just because of his
Well, and Nikki has the interest, she's already looked at it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
You're right.
If we can hook up Tom and Nikki with maybe Gary, or maybe Tom, maybe Stacy, said, you've used this tool. How could it be improved even more? Because, I mean, think about when this tool was put into the CMP, it really wasn't anything that we had any input in.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the consultants worked
Yeah.
through us and talked to us about it, but it was our first shot at anything for us
Yeah.
to use to quantify moving forward with the project. We've never had anything, so it's a huge step forward for us. Doesn't mean it's the final product. We just-
And this may not, and this one focuses so much on, it has a bias, an inferred bias. You can only use this tool for the following situations. You have to use a different tool for that, and I don't think we have a full suite of tools that covers everything. So it'd be nice to do a gap analysis to find out what other tools we need.
Well, didn't you say on one of the original ones, just the number value kind of skews it?
Yes, just
Just
the number
the
values.
number value skews it, so, okay. Do we want to take that on, you guys, as a task, and put it as an action item for
I
you two? And then we can work it out.
And if you'll just work with me, I'll help connect you to the appropriate staff people and get that set up and tell them at least that you guys are going to be contacting them.
Yes.
So get them blind, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Nikki, just to build on your last point, I think it's important as you guys work through that, think about maybe another tool that would apply to more of the 271 implementation tasks.
Right.
I kind of get the feel that these two tools, that was my first impression when I read it months ago. It applies to a very small percentage of
Right.
those tasks.
Right.
So we may need to build something that applies to
More
everything.
generic
Yeah.
instead of very specific. Because this one is based on, I have a hammer, so the whole world looks like a nail. And if you have a screw, this is going to work.
Well, it's very much on construction type projects. It's very much geared towards
Yes.
amenity prioritization. I mean, it's very much.
Bigger issue,
Right.
more than likely, is maintenance of what we have.
Yeah.
We prioritize, a road versus, a building versus
Lake.
water plant or a lake or whatever.
That's a good point.
Rolland, you look like you wanted to say something. Going back and reviewing it.
Some of the sections probably just need to be changed entirely. Section 2, stage 2, we don't have any of those kind of houses. Okay. There's a lot to be
Again,
done.
it
Okay.
assumes a bias. It is mostly construction, and it assumes a new project versus an existing amenity. So you have those biases built
And
in.
no plating restrictions or anything.
Yeah.
Greenfield,
Yeah.
or brownfield, or whatever.
Okay.
And then the third one, so we have one no, one yes, and the third, facility conditioning, is that,
That's Murray.
Yeah.
What's
okay,
this?
who gave us this?
Let's wait with that.
That's-
Murray's gonna do that, and then
That
I'm
goes
gonna,
with this.
then we'll talk about this for a second. This is one of the paperclip.
So Rolland graciously gave me the opportunity to lead this discussion. So thank you very much. You should all have this packet. The first page is basically a definition of facilities condition index. I did look this up on the internet through several sources, so now I consider myself an expert.
Get your certification tomorrow.
So FCI is basically, think about it, and I just traded in an old car for a new car. So it's a lot like that decision. How much are you willing to spend in maintenance of that old car before you replace it? And that's the theory behind the FCI as it applies to a group of buildings. So mathematically, the formula is very easy. The estimated cost of maintenance and repairs divided by the current replacement value. So that's the easy part. So also on the internet are a plethora, I don't get to use that word often enough, of inspection assessments. And I've just attached one here so you have a look at. Basically what you have to do is go through every system, every aspect of the building, including things like parking lots, obviously AC and heat and lights and fire suppression, those sorts of things are critical. So obviously, once you do your inspection, to calculate the FCI, you then have to put a cost on everything. All the deficiencies in that building, you have to come up with what either the maintenance or repair or replace cost would be to get an accurate index. So the third document there is the inspection criteria that has been used in the past by POA staff. Now, a little bit of history here. The committee.
Actually, it was used by the committee,
Right.
the Utility Public Works Committee at the time.
And that's part of the history. My history with the committee goes back about 2.5 years now. So during that time, building management and maintenance was not a part of the POA staff that we worked with. So earlier this year, when the staff reorganized, buildings came back into the purview of the Public Services Committee. So we're now, we do have plans, and they're supported by Jason, to rework this criteria for the inspection. And also the last document is, I think it's the most recent, if not, it's a good structure of the inspection documentation that has been done in the past. So it's these last two documents that the committee and Mike Sikora and his staff will be working on to upgrade. So what we will have is a good process for inspecting our buildings, a good process for logging and or identifying and logging any deficiencies. So the step we will wait for direction from others is to take the huge step of doing this FCI calculation, which will mean taking every deficiency on our inspection and putting a price tag on it.
Is this information, is there a database for this, an Excel spreadsheet? How are we capturing and?
This is an Excel spreadsheet and this is in Word.
Okay.
And then these were searched in the Public Works Department database and found. Actually, this one came from Rolland, who was on the committee back when they did building inspections.
Quick comment on that. This was back 10 years ago, when that was one of the two things they did, roads and buildings. And water, nobody knew that was under lakes or public works or who at the time. And something about this, it was primarily cosmetic and visual. We did not do electrical inspections, that's for electricians. We did not do heating and air conditioning inspections. We did not do plumbing inspections, that's for certified people. We certainly didn't do roofs because they didn't want a bunch of old guys running around under restaurants. They couldn't liability.
Structural work.
So it was in many ways cosmetic, and having gotten a building department now, it is much more professional and much better done, and I think it's really good development.
So where this fits into us is, as we make any recommendations in the future, we need to have this data, per se. I mean, I'm trying to see how it fits into our committee.
Yeah, you know, what I'm wondering is if, as an exercise, or you know, if there would be any value, because we never put to rest the Balboa Club, right, buddy? You can see it's still hanging out there somewhere. And you know, I know for me at least, I have some responsibility over the next year to fine tune that recommendation and start to get back in front of the board with, you know, what is the next thing. Maybe it would be worth doing a facility conditioning indexing, because one of the things we've asked the board on the clubhouse, now I'm not going to talk about the golf course, is help us. Which path do we go? Renovate or tear down and rebuild? This is exactly what we need to know. Really, I mean, it's one of the things that we're somewhat.
Yeah, you'd think it would be sort of the foundation for whatever your
And we
recommendation
have some good
is.
information. I mean, we do, because we did a study on the
Looking
building.
at this, Stephanie, I would have agreed 100%, but let's say we go through, I don't know what it would take, 6 months or so to do a proper investigation and inspection of every system in that building. And we come to you and we say the FCI number is 0.1. How does that help the board make a decision any different than what they made last month?
Okay, I have also done a little research on this, and you and I can talk offline about some of the things that I found, but I found a shortcut service versus a full intense one that was more cost savings, but you're also doing a high level thing. But the same logic of the decision-making tools of having a legend we would have to establish a legend of doing it. And as far as relative to this committee, I mean, when we talk about the 3 pillars for the CMP, maintaining value, that goes directly to the amenities. If we don't maintain the amenities, we don't necessarily do what we need to do in terms of value. So I think there's a tie in there.
But in the same way we use the amenities prioritization tool to help us with our decisions for the board recommendation on the Balboa Club, if we have this, maybe it's not facility conditioning index, I don't know.
I
but
think
something-
I think rather than that one number, it's everything behind
All the other
it
stuff.
that-
Yeah.
In terms to do it, so then they can start prioritizing what needs to do it, because we know we have, everything was built about the same time, and it's all aging out about the same time. It's getting past its usable life in a lot of areas. Various different systems last longer, shorter, et
Well,
cetera.
that building was actually built in 87?
87.
Yeah, there's some stuff it's the 50-year buildings, we still have some 20-year buildings, not many. Granada Clubhouse, we've got 20-year buildings, so.
So each and every one of those have potential that, if you fix one, you know that somewhere down
coming
the
down the
pipe.
pipe.
Yeah, it's gonna go down the
I
pipe.
think that's the biggest thing is, once you know a road's going down, you got 500 miles of those roads, the next mile's gonna go down too, so someplace.
I
But
think
some of
that
it
any
been
evaluation,
brought up to standard.
any evaluation tool though that we have that we can use, and when we're making recommendations, especially a big one, that's multi-million dollar recommendations, anything we can bring together that says we've really done a lot of background work, a lot of homework, and really fully understand the.
Maria, put this now, switch hats, put your public service committee hat on.
Mhm.
Is this something you guys are gonna run with, or where does it kind of fit?
We're
in?
going to run, like I said, these 2 documents, an upgrade of the procedure and an upgrade of the spreadsheet where the inspection results are captured. That's what we committed to, working with staff to upgrade
Okay.
those 2 documents. More in line with what would be required to do a proper FCI, if that's what's decided that we need.
Okay. For this committee, we would be more a user of the FCI than actually a participant in the
I
FCI.
think so.
Okay. So we,
I would agree with that and I think where we can help with recommendations is weighting. That if we could come up with recommendations on proposed weightings that go into it, because when you're doing an FCI, you're talking about one amenity, one facility. We have hundreds of amenities, hundreds of facilities, and we have to make a decision and a comparative, should we work on this one or that
Actually,
one?
its best use would be to have the FCI on every building.
Every
Or at
building,
least
yeah.
the major ones, so you have that.
So you can compare them apples to apples.
so that you do an FCI and you give us the other sheet of paper of all the buildings.
Yeah, can I comment on that? One of the things that keeps coming up at the board meetings, certainly from one of the board members, is they want a facility usage index and utilization index and everything like that before they make a decision on Balboa Club, and we're talking about buildings like buildings are all the same. And the truth is, we don't really have very many buildings that we have a lot of flexibility with. So Murray had Mike print out a list of all the buildings that we inspect, and I just took that list and kind of listed it out here. And just for example, if you look under the number, you see we have 17 halfway houses. We have 8 cart barns. We've got 12 pump houses in our golf courses. Those are some of the big ones. But more interesting are some of the figures at the bottom. If you go down about halfway the page, you'll see the subtotals, 85. Basically, we have 85 single-purpose buildings. You're not gonna put the police department in pump house. It's something
It
like that.
depends how Ricky is. Ricky makes someone mad. He
It's all
could be.
mine. And 58 of those are related to golf. So that's a big load. So 63% of the buildings by count, not necessarily weight or size, is golf, and 92% of it is single purpose. That leaves us, I have 7 buildings down below here. I guess you could take the natatorium building and put it up above. That if we're going to look at utilization, those are the ones we need to look at, because they're the only ones that really have any flexibility. And I just thought this would be kind of an interesting little exercise so we know what exactly our building stock is like and what we're keeping up.
Okay, I want to make sure I understand. So you're saying that the only ones that we can look at for flexibility are the multi-use, not the single use?
Well, why don't we convert the public works maintenance building, pipe shed too? I'm saying these ones above are, yeah, they have a specific purpose. They pump water, they're a clubhouse, golf clubhouse, they're a tennis clubhouse, they're buildings at the water plant. So those are all have a dedicated purpose. And the chances of converting those to anything else are pretty slim.
Okay.
But I think part of the question, when I think of utilization, I think of like the tennis clubhouse, for example. How much is it really getting used? I think of utilization. I mean, is it sitting empty, most of the day because tennis is down? Or is it being used all the time?
All the
Well,
time.
police training centers like that too.
Well, family recreation area.
Family recreation.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, so when someone is asking about the utilization, I think it'd be really important to ask them, what is it specifically they're thinking about? Are they thinking about other ways to use a building, or are they thinking about how much a building is used? What is it they're really asking?
Well, police training center is a good example. People meet there, and we've got other meetings there other than Coronado. But basically it's dedicated to that one purpose. And so there's a few like that. I'm sure it's great to bring that up.
And that's another.
One man's opinion.
Another study, actually, that the staff is going to be working on this next year as part of the enterprise goals is the facility needs assessment. So beyond the conditioning and those other things, the needs assessment is, what do we need? Do we need another building for meetings? Probably not, right? I mean, do we
Probably need one less for meetings.
Right, probably need one less for meetings. So yes, what are the needs that we have that we're unable to meet because we don't have space for, and what are we actually using things for that we shouldn't be?
Okay.
On the top, I see NO, that's the number of, what's R dot total?
That's just the running totals. I went along.
Running total.
I think it's kind of 85. So
Well, let's look at this one, and this is something public service is going to work on.
yes.
We just need to be knowledgeable as we make any recommendations, and if they deal with specific buildings out in the future, that we need to come back to this and say, this is what the facility condition, and make a recommendation to do this or do that. Does this have impact on it?
Okay. So is there a requirement to do FCI?
Not specifically, but we have a prioritization of,
Yeah.
there's only so much money in the budget, so where are we going to spend the money on existing versus new versus whatever? And of the existing, which existing?
Yeah, I agree, but to be honest, I really don't know, still don't, where the request came from for us
It came
to
out of-
consider it.
It came from the CEO
Okay.
to say, I think she addressed it again someplace else in another document, but that's where the request came from, because that will allow the board, it will allow the staff to make a decision too, because we just don't, again, it's one of those things that we've been here 50 years and we don't have that tool in use, and we got some buildings that are, the interesting one would have been do the facility assessment on the pool.
Well, I think that's right, because as we were walking through these large projects and the controversy that surrounds and abounds about them, that was a place where she said, well, that's one thing that we're not really using today. Maybe we should do some research, and would this committee look into that? Is it something that we should be using? And it may be that you come back and say that's not the best tool that you can use to make that decision. It may be that there's a better way.
Before the Public Services Committee or me on their behalf says yes, we've committed to doing the upgrade of the inspection program. So I'll get back to the committee and say, okay, what will it take to take that next step to get a proper FCI of, Rolland's maybe 20 most important buildings or something.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good one.
All right.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. Well, Cindy, thank you for patiently listening to our...
It's been exciting.
Yeah, I'm sure it has for you. Just a little background. Cynthia Ganz was put out an idea out on the internet and saw it out there and It has to do with neighborhood association out there. I don't know, it's probably some of you have seen it out there on the internet. And it created a lot of, I don't say chatter, but the good thing was it didn't create negative chatter. It created a lot of positive type of, how could this potentially work and stuff like that. So she's done some work, and I said, I invited her to sit with Nikki and I this, as we were planning the agenda, to say, where does this really fit in? And it kind of fits into our overall master plan, because we talk about communications, we talk about getting the word out, how you do stuff, and this is a potential way of getting communications at the grassroots at large. And I'll be very honest with you, buddy, to do the grassroots level is kind of hard sometimes as a board member, unless you want to be a 40-hour-a-week board member. I know you're a 50-hour-a-week board member. Nancy, you're doing 55 a week. So
Yes, at least.
You haven't seen your husbands and wives since you got elected. But this is how do you capture some potential other people. And I look at it, and this is the kind of thing. If someone's interested in maybe being a neighbor association, they may be future groomed to someday sit on a board too. So it's, if they have that interest. But I will turn it over to Cindy. She's done a lot of work on this.
Thank you.
I think we sent out all the documents, right? Or no, we didn't send the documents out, so she can explain them. So.
I can send them.
Okay.
So, my name is Cynthia Ganz, and I've been an owner since 2005. And we built our home on Lake Estrella in 2009. I'm here today to present an idea I've been noodling over for the last few months. And then as I watched the last Board of Directors meeting on YouTube and listened to the threat letter being read out loud, I knew it was time to do something about the communication problem we are experiencing within this village, within my slice of heaven on earth. So I went to Remax and I got 2 maps. And I put them on my dining room table, and over a 3-day period of time, as I would go to make dinner, I would be like, yeah, and then I'd go to make lunch, and then I'd sit down for 3 hours every evening and just kind of pore over it. I decided that we needed to have representation, communication to and from the neighborhoods. And in order to do that, we needed to separate out kind of the neighborhoods into what I felt was common sense neighborhoods. Not the...
not the 9 or what?
Not the 9.
In the CMP. These are different from those.
These are different from those, and it's not subdivisions, because there's like 288 of those. So how do you separate out this map? So I looked at the streets, the lakes, the golf courses, the mountains, and kind of the populations. I then split the map into 20 districts, taking everything into consideration to try to get to 20 equitable areas. Once I had them outlined, I colored them in, gave them a number, and then sat down to figure out how to get all those people, your neighbors, mine, the voice that they feel that they are lacking. Because they're online, they're screaming, and they're not happy, and I'm not sure why. So at that point, I said we need to find 20 brave new souls, one in each district, to step up and volunteer to be the voice of their neighborhood. I put together a list of qualifications that person will need to have. Patience will be the first thing on that.
Yes.
Then I needed to be able to communicate what this group will be responsible for doing, and so I needed to develop a charter. I went online and looked at charters from every neighborhood association I could find and came up with a version that I think would serve the village well. The purpose of this alliance would be to build community at the neighborhood level and improve the livability and economic vitality of the village. The 20 representatives would individually communicate and provide a forum with factual information to help identify, discuss, and resolve neighborhood issues and bring forward the really ingenious ideas I've been hearing about from many of my neighbors for years. The Alliance would establish two-way communication between neighborhoods and the POA, between neighborhoods and the board of directors, and between neighborhoods and businesses. So this first chart kind of gives you an idea of how this would sort of work. So at this level, this is our landowner. The heart is the landowner. They would fill out an issue and idea form, which I have created as well. They would provide any supporting documentation to their issue or their idea. And it could be as little as a picture of the issue that they're having is they've got a street that's got a big pothole in it, and they called the POA 8 times and nobody's responded to them, so then it comes in as an issue. The person doing this, the representative doing this, is not going to be in any way, shape, or form a substitution for the POA. They would be an accelerated issue place to go if you're not getting what you need from the village. So they would send that into their representative by email or mail. The representative for that neighborhood would meet with that person. They would talk about how to package it, what's the background, what do they need. The person, the representative, has to kind of be a salesman. And within their within the resume, that person has to be non-partisan, non-judgmental. They have to be able to take every issue and every idea and bring it into this 20 representatives. So there's going to be some criteria for who would be the best person in the neighborhood to do that. So then it would come into this board, and let's say that we have 20, and let's say each one of them has 10. So now I've got 200 ideas and issues that month. It's a monthly meeting. At that point in time, the ideas and the issues are going to be separated out. So maybe, the person in 6 and the person in 14 have exactly the same idea, the same issue, the same whatever. It's all put into little buckets. Then it comes in, and through a, I don't want to say secret ballot, but through a ballot, it would be boiled down every month to like the top 5 or top 10 issues and ideas. Once we had that decision made, it would go to the committee at the village to have them look at it. And it could be that once they get to that committee, the road committee, let's say, for the pothole, they say, oh, we've got this list of where we're going next to fill in potholes, and they're number 3 on the list. Done. Now that rep goes back to the person, and they say, we're number 3 on the list, here's the list, blah, 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 whatever. But it could be that it's not going to be that easy to figure it out. They would meet with the committee. The person who submitted the idea or the issue has to meet with the committee. Where you see an M here, those are 3 meetings that they are required to attend if they're going to have an idea or an issue. They have to be able to meet and discuss it. So then, at that point in time, it's sent to the board where the person is put on the board agenda. They meet.
Well, that's where we need to have a little discussion, have to go through the committee agenda first.
Right, yeah, so that's.
Just, little things like that.
Right, yeah, and this is real high level.
Yeah.
So they would meet with the committee to review and to package it, to bring it to the board, and then they would go to the board. Now, the board can say...
The staff has to, one thing I remember we talked about, we got to make sure the staff's in there someplace.
Right, and it could be that here, you
Yeah.
know, yeah.
Yeah.
So at that point, the board could say no. But it doesn't stop right there. The board would have to, at some point in time, prepare a detailed letter that says we couldn't do this because. And it could be because we don't have the money, because, you know, whatever it happens to be, they have to have some kind of a reason to say no. And then that would go back to the representative and the person presenting the idea. They could drop the idea until a later date, or they could revisit it and revise it so that it becomes an idea that's viable. And then the representative would communicate that decision back into the members, who on a quarterly basis would have the results of every idea that came in, whether it was accepted or rejected and why. And that would be on, you know, their permanent record. Now, if they said yes at this point, it would continue to go through the next phases. So the committee would prepare a cost analysis or any other kind of analysis. Maybe it's a great idea, let's see how much that's going to cost. And then it would be reviewed. And at that point in time, the board either approves it or they say, I don't approve that. And it would go back up through the same basic process. So this is how we would communicate to the board and whoever. What this is how you would communicate to us. So the board of directors, the committee, the CEO, a village employee, a business owner, chamber of commerce, realtors, builders, whoever, can request to meet with us. And once they request to meet with us, they would tell us why. So change of staff, election, clear up misinformation, ideas and issues, the grand opening for a new whatever, recognition for all the hard work everybody does, and clarity on a submitted issue or idea. It would come in, we would add it to our agenda. The meeting requester has to meet and submit what the clarification is or the reason for their request. It gets told to every representative exactly the same way, so there's never any question as to whether it's a conspiracy theory or it's pie in the sky or whatever. It's documented at that point in time and put into the permanent record for the alliance. And then at that point, you've pretty much got, I guess, everything kind of covered there. So today, it's conceivable that 7 board members could live on the same block or in the same neighborhood. That means that they may not fully understand the issues for someone living on a lake with a silt problem or a deteriorating golf course or any one of a number of issues that arise in our little paradise. This alliance would allow the board of directors to see issues before they reach a crisis and to consider new ideas to help generate revenue so we can continue to be a premier destination for generations to come. My next steps are to send the individual district maps to a person in that district and have someone in each district schedule a meeting to review the map. So it could be that, you know, number 6 says, yeah, that's really good, I like that, except these 2 blocks right here should probably be part of 6, you know, whatever. So we would make adjustments as necessary, and then once solidified, we would have to ask for volunteers to manage their districts. So in the event that more than one person steps up in a district, there would be a runoff. They would have to have a little election or whatever. In the event that, you know, one of the districts says, I'm not doing that, nobody's doing it, then this district, and I'll just use 15 as an example, District 15 would be 1 year without representation, without being able to input ideas or issues. They would be 1 year, and then the number of representatives within the districts would be reallocated to get a new consensus number for the rest of them. And it could be number 3, I was looking at this, someone said you should have an odd number, I agree, and 3 may have to come into 2, I may have to divide that up into 2 different sections. Anyway, so once we got the actual outline of the districts and everybody knew where they were living, then we would go to those districts and say, we need your help, we need volunteers, we need you to have your election or whatever it happens to be. And then once we got a person elected or volunteered in those areas, the proposed charter that I've drawn up would be reviewed and solidified in some way, shape, or form. It's probably going to be revised by these 20 members, and that would kind of take us off into that direction to go. Are there questions?
Yeah, I look at this because she hit on one point. If Buddy's been here long enough, back in about 2012, 2011, the board got accused of being too Diamante. If you think about back then, there was one board, I think 4 of the members had ties to Diamante. Either they lived there or they were landowners, lived other places, but were out there. And I want Cindy to kind of present this to us as a CMP, just to kind of, as a thought process, to say, is this something, because we have our 7 board members, yeah, they all could be from, one neighborhood or stuff like that. Is this something that potentially could be? And she's running with it. I mean, she's been running with this on the internet and having the other stuff. But I wanted to, kind of, so we are aware of it, because potentially, I see it as a communications tool. Right. Cindy uses it as more of, kind of getting issues out, but it's also a communications tool, because sometimes you have a hard time, as many e-blasts as you send out, sometimes it's not until, they get the email from the neighborhood, from Trixie, who lives on, whatever street, they always read Trixie's emails, but if someone else sends them, if the POA sends them an email, it's like, delete.
Well, the whole concept here was communication.
This is not in the CMP, and I don't know where she should present it, but I question whether it's here, because it's not within our purview.
Okay.
I think that as a communication, that the fact that it has a 2-way communication modality built into it is good, because I think information people need to feel heard, and people need to feel like their voice is being represented in some form or fashion. However, only as a communication tool, because we have a governance structure here, and that cannot be, that can't be changed at this point.
Well, the big problem right now with this is that the board, everything she's talking about involves operation, and the board does not get involved in operation. So if they come up with problems with potholes or streets or drainage or whatever, that's got to go to staff, not to the board.
True. That is a common misunderstanding as well.
And it assumes that potholes aren't being taken care of.
Right.
Well, it doesn't assume that. That was an example.
That's just her example.
Yeah.
Well, but okay, what is a problem? I mean,
It was ideas too. It's a way to communicate.
It's more about
you have
ideas,
a brilliant idea
Yeah.
sitting in your Barca lounger at home, and you're thinking, boy, if I could get this out to the village as an idea. So
we have a number of committees. We have a number of people. These may be good ideas. why recreate another wheel when we have plenty of committees and places that people can plug in and help?
Can I answer that? I hear what you're saying and I understand, but I think that a lot of and this is just my own personal feeling, but I think that a lot of the challenge for the village right now is that people don't feel heard, and the committees do not feel like, to the residents out there, the committees don't feel like they really represent the individuals the way they want to, and they're not being heard the way they want to. And what this is doing is providing a mechanism for very grassroots communication and for helping to allay some of those misconceptions and bad communication and false information that's out there. And clearly, the committees that we have, the process that we have now is not working.
This is
Period.
working. I disagree.
It is not
This
working.
divides up our community. This divides up our community. And we've seen this before in other municipalities where they go to a division plan and then people start, they start taking sides. And, this is the start.
And you think people in this community haven't taken sides now?
I think they're a minority.
Let me make a couple of other clarifications here. The first thing is, this alliance has one committee, and that's to revise the charter every 5 years. There are no committees allowed and no subcommittees. We're not there to do your job. We're not there to do BOD's job. We're talking to you. You're hopefully talking to us.
It goes back, Clint, a little bit to the communications. Communications this way, communications that way. And then making sure that if someone in, in 4, because 4 is down there, an area where it's the HSVPOA area, that's, maybe they don't feel they're getting heard.
Put in a suggestion box. I mean, I'm telling you, I've seen this before, that you go dividing up the community, it'll never be the same.
Well, again, I asked Cindy to come here. This is a grassroots effort going on. I'm looking at, if they continue, and I hate to say, there's been grassroots efforts out there. Heck, Cheryl's a grassroots effort on her website. This is another one to try to say, maybe let's get across our village, because we are very diverse, to get all the people together. So I understand where you're coming from there, Clint, but I just wanted to kind of give Cindy a chance to say, here to our committee, to say, down the road, this might be something that, to say, hey, here's a factual type of stuff, send it out so the 20 people get it. Can it be used? Is it something that says directly in a CMT recommendation? No, but it ties into several recommendations that.
Might I ask a question? Are you looking to a committee, whether it's this one or some other committee or staff, to endorse the?
No.
So you're just basically sharing information on
I'm
something
sharing
you would do
information
anyway.
with you. I'm not asking permission
Yeah.
Okay.
to do this. I'm asking cooperation.
Yeah, just
If
wants to-
this gets done,
Yeah.
and I can get these 20 people to step up, and we can get through the ideas and the things, I need somebody to cooperate and listen to us and respond to us in writing.
That's where.
And to that point, I think one of the challenges, and I think Stephanie hit it on the head when I was having a conversation with her, is if somebody has an idea, an issue, or complaint, there is not a full understanding of, well, who do I talk to about this? And so I think that also comes under an issue. But does this solve that issue, or do we have a fundamental issue and this is a workaround to get around something that we don't understand?
Well, as for instance, and I'm just going to throw this out, Balboa, the clubhouse. I probably have had 15 different really great suggestions on how to use that clubhouse and get revenue out of it just in the last couple of months. So I don't know that you've ever seen that, if the board's ever seen anything like that. Most people won't just pick up the phone and call the board and say, hey, I got this great idea. They're afraid to do that. This is a way to get those things put into writing and through a system where they feel like their idea was at least heard, that somebody looked at it. So,
But do we need to actually go into 20 different districts or whatever the number is going to be in order to do that? Or can we use that mechanism globally and use it as a communication channel?
Well, you need to think about this though. You're talking about the Balboa Club. We have staff right now that are deeply involved in the Balboa Club. That information needs to go to Stephanie, not to the board.
But see, I'm Joe Cindy, and I don't know where it's supposed to go.
Well, you need to
I
ask.
have no idea.
Write a letter. Write a letter to the administration and say, I have this idea.
Well, it's not as simple as you think on that one, Clint, because that's a concern because, and Buddy, you can attest Nancy to this, sometimes the emails, when they come in, you just don't have, you're pushing them off to say, this is definitely go down. So they go, and how many emails does Stephanie get? Again, this is a vetting process too. There's 14,000 ideas that can come in any day from the village because that's how many residents we have. This is potential vetting. Again, it is something
That's my point. Is it going to help communications or is it going to cut them off? I have an idea, I give it to my representative, it goes to the group of 20, and they pick the top 5, and mine's number 6 or number 14 or whatever. Does that preclude me trying to go to the committee myself?
No.
Does that, and does that discourage me? So you're talking about a vetting thing. Well, suppose I don't want to be vetted. Suppose I want to go around. And that's my only concern is this doesn't become a choke point.
Yeah.
Or as you say, a vetting operation where it's just somebody else that's not listening to you.
So I put it out on Nextdoor, and I went through all my neighbors and got as much information and as much feedback as I could possibly get before I put it all together, and I've had very little pushback.
I just one thought, and if this goes through, I've heard our meetings are during the day when they're working. So if something like this could have like evening meetings instead of daytime meetings to be more inclusive, I think it would be a positive if this happened.
I agree. Now, I've also had feedback from some older people who are living here who aren't capable of being a representative, but their son or their daughter's there caring for them. They could be conceivably on the board on that committee.
I'm Diane Belansky. I'm one of the neighborhood leads on Nextdoor. And there are a lot of good ideas and valid complaints, but the mechanism now is it just dies. That Nextdoor has a good idea about putting together safe neighborhoods where neighbors can make suggestions and work together. But right now, every topic becomes a complaint session because there isn't any positive next steps that are built into the Nextdoor infrastructure. So I myself, as a lead, would welcome the opportunity to at least pilot such a notion to see if there is, how we can flesh out the details and work with it.
Marcy, I'll call on you then. That'd be the last one. We're about ready for me to move on.
I wanted to commend you on this. In 2015, I put together a program much like this. Did not go, but we call it the House of Representatives.
Oh, okay.
And grouped together subdivisions. I think it's a great idea. I would suggest that you not elect just one person, but have maybe co-people and backups, because there's always going to be someone that can't make a meeting. But if I would offer my help if you'd like to go forward.
Get your hooked up with Marcy.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. We're running a little bit long. Thank you, Cindy. Hopefully you've got some feedback here. I would recommend that we not do the SWOT. And then the importance of language. And Nikki just wanted to talk about the short, medium, and long-term strategy definitions that you have out there.
One of the things that we've been doing in our subcommittee is going through all the recommendations and saying, is it short, middle, or long-term? But we really didn't have a definition, an agreed-upon definition of what that was. So this is my attempt. I have a two-page that I gave you. The first one is the chart format that basically has the characteristics of what I just, to be adjusted or changed if you want them. But I was hoping that we could get some consensus on this in terms of that, so that when we are reviewing each of the recommendations, and you're saying this is short-term, we all agree that short-term, by this definition, assuming we accept it, is anything that's 12 months or less. 1 to 3 years is midterm, and if it's greater than 5 years, that's going to be a long-term. If we can get consensus, then we can all speak the same language.
This is acted upon, but not necessarily completed, right? In other words, we start action on these, complete action based on.
To be determined.
Is this a motion?
I would say.
No, this is
No.
new business. This
New
is
business.
getting it out there to say, get the comments to Nikki. She's done yeoman work on putting this together.
I think that brings us, I like what you've done. I think this brings some clarity so that we're all speaking.
Well, and then once this is what we found when Rolland's subcommittee, we went through, all right, we said it's short term, we said it's long term.
Yeah.
All right, this gives us type of stuff
Right.
there, because everybody else, once the recommendations get on, we can start plugging those terms in there, so.
And then the graphic is that from a board perspective, they're making their annual objectives and goals, but they think long-term, which is the 5 to 10 years, but nothing happens in 5 years without making a little progress every year. So the 1 to 3 year, what we would call midterm, would be in the second, the green level. And so from the long-term strategies, we attempt to define something that is in the 1 to 3 year, but for every year at least, we would establish milestones that this piece of it will get done, then this piece will get done, and maybe we'll get 2 milestones a year, maybe we'll get 4 milestones toward that. But within each of those, that's going to be broken down even further to individual projects that we can align to the fiscal budget year. And that way we have we can go bubble up, or we can roll down from a top down or a bottom up approach that is completely, I hope, in sync between what the objectives and the goals of the POA is, and for the poverty limits, all the way down to what is the actionable by department, by recommendation. That was the goal that I had there. There's at least the vision. So I wanted to pose this out to you. Feel free. I have some characteristics, more tactical versus strategic, where it falls into budget. The level of activity, is it something daily, weekly, or is it weekly, monthly, or is it quarterly, annual? So depending on whether it's short, medium, or long-term would depend on how granular we would divide that out. I just thought it would be important that we can make a recommendation here within our own team as we go through that we have an agreed upon definition, and then hopefully we can get this organization-wide so that we can get it all the way up to the board if we can be singing from the same song.
Questions?
Good job.
Yeah, good job.
Okay, like I said, we'll get SWOT and do the other ones next time. Going around the table, Clint, anything else? Jody had to go back to...
No.
Mr. Tom? Murray? You'll be out looking at buildings tonight, probably. Pam?
No.
Good job on marketing. For the marketing folks that are still here, good job. Thank you for that.
Motion to adjourn.
Wait a minute, we got Buddy? Stephanie?
No.
Nikki?
Good.
Nick? Okay. Director Lauren?
As a director, I certainly appreciate what Cindy is trying to do. She's identified a problem and she's offered a solution. And I think if more residents got involved to do the very same thing, it would be wonderful. Whether this be the format or something else, I'm not sure about that, but I do applaud her efforts. She worked very hard on that.
Thank you.
Here, here.
Maxine? Who's talking, Chuck or Melinda today? You have devoted?
I got this.
Cindy, anything else?
No, I'm good.
Sir, I don't know your first name, but I'd call you.
Larry?
Larry. Okay, You
My
tied
better
it-
half.
Oh, tied the hair, okay. Moral support. Okay.
Yeah, on the whole Balboa thing, I haven't really heard a great amount of input on anybody asking Cooper about it, since they're the ones that built it. Is Ernie has Ernie been asked for input?
Well, we actually engaged the actual firm that built it, not Cooper. Cooper didn't build it. There's a firm called Stucken Associates, and they came and did an actual full-out structural evaluation. They evaluated all the mechanical systems, the structure of the building itself. Yes, so the answer, we didn't go to Cooper because that's not accurate. They didn't build it. But Stucken Associates did, and they were a part of the team that helped with the recommendation.
But Ernie did build the golf course. Ernie was the contact engineer, to the best of my
Is
knowledge.
that really a question?
You're kind of going back to the board type of stuff there. Because that doesn't, yeah, it's a Stephanie, yeah.
Yeah, that's not really a
I can't
question
actually comment on what
appropriate to this
the
committee.
Yeah, we
golf
can't-
course
yeah, we
part
couldn't
was
comment
anyway.
on
I don't
golf
know. I actually don't know about the golf course. I only know about the clubhouse side of it. So
Why don't we ask Cooper questions?
we talked to Cooper.
We do,
Yeah.
all the time.
I really get the distinct impression that on something like this, they hadn't been consulted.
That's not your question is not relevant to this committee.
Well, you're gonna discuss the Balboa golf course, then it is.
Well, we're not discussing it right now.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing
All we do is evaluate things, issues to the CMP.
The Balboa clubhouse improvement is part of the CMP, giant.
and we discussed it last time. We actually made the motion that it's doing some type of work at the Balboa Clubhouse is consistent with the CMP, and there's a recommendation there that says to do something with the Balboa Clubhouse. It's,
In the way, I do want you to understand, Cooper's model was to build and hand off. Their model was to build, construct things, and then pass it to the POA to then manage it and take it from there, forever and ever and always. It was never come back to me later and put me back into the middle of that mix. I mean, that was the model that they did. That's why we have a POA, was for them to build and pass.
I mean,
And that's what they do.
Jody's
And then it
not
becomes
here.
our
It
sole
would be-
responsibility.
It'd be nice to ask Jody, well, Jody, do you want to have any action with the Balboa Clubhouse? And I would bet you Cooper would, if she spoke for Cooper, she'd give you the answer there. I mean, she's not here to say, but, she could tell you that.
But that's not their model. Their model is not to stay involved long term. I mean, it's just not what that's why they created an association.
Defend all the bad
Motion.
Okay. Marcy, do you have anything?
No.
Okay. Diane,
I'm good.
Renee, way in the
Thank you.
back. Cindy, you got one last thing?
I was on a POA as the president, and what happens typically in every development is they develop, they sell, they hand it over to the homeowners.
Yeah.
And so that process is supposed to work
Okay.
that way, but I get,
Who's making the motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Yeah.
Aye, thank you. We can talk offline.